Hey, Todd Almighty here. 5 years ago, I was asked to participate in a storytelling event in support of the Taos Cancer Services group. And, it was hard to turn down. When I think about it, I've spent 6 months as a cancer patient being diagnosed and treated. And then I spent 30 years up to today being a survivor. So survivorship sometimes gets a little lost in the shadows of the fact that, hey, you're going to be a survivor a lot longer than you're going to be a patient. So when asked to do this, I jumped at the chance. It was being run by some very close friends of mine. This is not a sad story in my storytelling. It's my musings on being involved with a children's summer camp for children with cancer and how all of that changed my life and ended up with me living in Taos, New Mexico. So, short introduction, straight to my story, and then a short outro.
Good evening, Taos. Welcome to this, our third edition of Misfits, Malcontents, and Mystics. And can I just say thank you for coming out first and foremost. Thank you very much. So Misfits, Malcontents, and Mystics, the idea behind this is it's storytelling. And these are true Taos stories told by your friends and neighbors. And each event benefits a different nonprofit. Tonight we're here in favor of Cancer Support Services. So I've asked Jason. Jason Pfeiffer's a little bit amazing. When I did the first event, it was for the Paseo. And immediately afterwards in the lobby, he came up to me and he said, "Can we do one for Cancer Support Services?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." And he's just been on fire with the thing from beginning to now. So here's Jason to tell you a little bit about that.
Awesome. Thank you, Clint. And this wouldn't happen without Clint. So again, Clint, you rock. Yeah, give him a round of applause. Come on. Ted, through your vulnerability and pain, you give us all strength. And I thank you for that. Love you, Ted. All right, our next storyteller, Mr. Todd Loomis. What can I say about a best friend like Todd Loomis? We ski instruct together. We drink beer together. We learned how to surf in Nicaragua together. We do a radio show together. No, you get the picture. We're close. We're close. So without further ado, Todd will tell you the rest of the story. Mr. Todd Loomis.
Thanks, Ted. Ted, you definitely reminded me of, I had a thought at one point when I was lying in hospital beds that I felt that sometimes it was easier to be the patient. And I'm going to mess up the stage for Jason. If you haven't caught our radio show, it is ADHD radio. And I can't use the podium because my eyes are that. I got to have things a little bit closer. First, I do want to thank Clint and Jason for putting this on and asking for me to write and speak about one of the more vulnerable, emotional aspects of my life. Guys, next time, can you ask me to write about green chili cheeseburgers? Second, a big shout out to my mom. She's going through her second round of cancer treatment. I myself am about 25 years remission, so kind of runs in the family, I guess. How I got to Taos. Camp. If I showed you a picture of a one-legged child with cancer, alone, bald, in a playground, you'd be really, really sad. Now picture 100+ skinny, some legless, some bald, some sick, some healthy kids screaming and running around gleefully in the same playground. Now that's pretty freaking funny. Welcome to Cancer Camp. As a camp counselor for 4 years, I was the only one who ever volunteered for male teens. No one volunteers for male teens.
My first day, they woke us up by playing John Denver's Thank God I'm a Country Boy for revelry. I had immediately asked for permission to hijack the sound system and formed a DJ contingent that was mostly hip-hop. NWA bootlegs were really popular at the time, but not allowed. The next morning, we started with Country Boy, then we broke in and announced the takeover. We then played an hour of music, mostly hip-hop, and rotated it through the kids each morning. But on that second day, my group, we became a crew. Pranks were big. And the younger cabins would come in during the day, and they would toilet paper our tents when we were at archery or crafts. We formed a task force. We would wake up at 3 a.m. and TP the inside of the other tents and cabins while everyone was sleeping. So yes, I taught young men from the inner city, the Jewish neighborhoods, and every area of Baltimore in between, and this was downtown Baltimore, how to move in darkness and avoid detection. If you want to know the trick, if you're walking through a tent toilet papering it, and you see somebody open their eyes, you close yours and you don't move. Shh, don't tell anyone. I actually almost got so basically people would wake up to this entire spider web of toilet paper in their tents and wonder how the hell we did it. I almost actually got thrown out of camp for that. For 4 years, I had many of the same kids, and we had some funerals, and yes, we had some additions, but the common bond between these kids who were bagmen for drug dealers, rich kids from the suburbs, and everything that Baltimore had to offer was that for 2 weeks out of the year, we all got to be kids, me included. Swim, archery, DJing, games, lots of guests, and lots of pranks. Jeff. One guest who stands out in my mind who visited us was Jeff Blotnick. He had the same cancer as me, Hodgkin's lymphoma, back in what I call the dark ages, when we were trying to figure out cure. 2 years after treatment, he won the gold medal in the 1984 Olympics for Greco-Roman wrestling. One of my 17-year-old football-playing campers was his foil at the pool. After a beautiful presentation about survivorship, self-understanding, and self-responsibility, he demonstrated Greco-Roman takedown techniques by throwing 200-plus pound Andy into the pool over and over and over. After putting his gold medal around another one of my campers' necks who was really into wrestling, the camper lost his breath and exclaimed it was the most amazing moment of his life to wear a gold medal. Jeff looked at him and stated, that medal is just a piece of metal, and that it was his determination and training that was important. I got to hang out with Jeff. He was actually a really cool man. He died 3 years ago due to cardiac complications caused by the treatments that saved his life in the 80s. He's actually now in both the Wrestling and MMA Hall of Fames. Spunky Girl. My third year at camp, I was sitting at orientation and a young lady started asking questions. Actually, it was more like demanding answers. I perked up and looked over and saw this beautiful young woman in a blue Hopkins 93 med sweatshirt, barely remember it, and instantly fell in love. Turns out she was working in the medical facility called the Funny Farm, where they gave meds, chemo, and had a top-notch facility of Johns Hopkins docs and med students at camp. At the first camper lunch, I got corralled by the teen girls to sit with them, a motley crew of outspoken inner-city girls with a penchant for teasing a specific male counselor. When lo and behold, Spunky Girl joins us. Halfway through the meal, Tanya, a 16-year-old whose 2-year-old daughter was with grandma at the time, proclaims, "You two would make a great couple." Never underestimate the wisdom of a one-legged city girl with big attitude. Medications must be left at the Funny Farm. Given many of the counselors were on meds, we needed to store them at the Funny Farm, not in our tents. Being known for mischief and expecting the director of the camp, who was a fairly stern oncology nurse, think Cratchit. I prepared my medicine bag. I walked up to the Funny Farm front desk, and the camp director isn't there. Spunky Girl is. I explain I'm dropping off my meds and pull out a plastic bag, a can of Budweiser in a Ziploc with my name on it. She asks me my dosage. I say 12 ounces. She asks me how often. I say as needed. And she wrote it all down into the medicine log. Kenny! Kenny was a young African American with Down syndrome and cancer. Kenny was a 16-year-old, 150-pound, a weightlifting football player, emotional roller coaster. And I was his counselor. On his first day of camp, Kenny fell in love. Kenny was so in love that the mere mention or sighting of his beloved would send him into a crying, no sobbing fit of grief. It got so bad that I had to coordinate with his love interest that my crew and she never crossed paths. And that was difficult considering the tight quarters in a 100-acre camp. Kenny, I could say, definitely had an eye for the ladies. During a visit by that year's benefactors who donate the money such that we could have camp, this incredibly dressed couple, think Abercrombie and Finch catalog, were walking across the grounds, and the striking woman in a flowing skirt and big red cowboy boots did not go unnoticed. Kenny jumped up onto the picnic table in front of the cabin, started jumping and screaming and yelling, "Hey, Boots! Hey, Boots! Hey, Boots!" The thing I can say about Kenny is he had incredible taste in women. As 3 years later, a little after I decided no longer to do camp, I married Spunky Girl, who we had both fallen for. Fast forward. I got to get to Taos sooner or later. History eraser. Wait a second, I came prepared. Thanks again, Ted. After 12 years of marriage, Spunky Girl and I decided to roam the country, me working remote as a computer geek and she as a temporary doc. A few years in, we took a winter off for a ski safari. We kicked it off in Taos. A year later, we were working in Española, and after miscellaneous job functions, ended up here in Taos, which we now call home. I became a part-time ski instructor and started ride-sharing with some guy named Jason, who mentioned he had cancer a few years earlier. Like a secret handshake, we became fast friends. 7 years later, he asked me if I wanted to write something for this very event. And I said, hell yeah. While writing ideas, one thought popped in my mind was, what if I could erase cancer from my life? Completely obliterate the pain, the surgeries, the fear for my family, the constant aftermath, the need to deal with my own mortality? I gave this a lot of thought. I would not be in front of you now. I would not be friends with Jason and Brent and Clint and Ted. I would have never known our friend Scott. Rest in peace. I'd probably never have found Taos, never traveled the country in an RV, never have spent 20 years with my wife, let alone having one of the oddest ways of ever meeting. Never have known so many young people fighting for such a devastating disease. Never have learned at the age of 26 how fragile and beautiful life is. Cancer sucked, and still sucks for me. Luckily, I was dealt a bad hand and not a death sentence. I can live with the scars, I can live with the doctors, I can live with the pill box of medications constantly reminding me of what day of the week it is. So no, I don't want to erase it from my life. I would never want to erase it from, I do, however, want to erase it from future lives. This event is a great example of how people are still fighting, such that fewer and fewer people will ever have to ask themselves, what if I could erase cancer from from my life. Thank you.
Thank you, Todd. Incredible. So, the thing about Todd and Jason is I'm a little bit of a dark character, and oftentimes I'll be up at Ski Valley and I'll start my day early, which makes me even darker. And I'll walk in and I'll be a little bit kind of like this, and maybe I'm down because my girlfriend left me again, and whatever it is, and I fall into these depressions, and then I see these guys, and they're so up, and they're just smiling, and I look at them, and I know their stories, and it's like, okay, there's no way that I can't get it together and pull it up for this. So Jason Pfeiffer's our last reader. Again, thank you so much for your passion, Jason, for this, for everything you did for this event and everything you're doing for Cancer Support Services.